Hello everyone. Welcome to this video. So in previous video, I already explained you what is clustering, what is K-mean clustering, how K-mean clustering works, the math behind the K-mean clustering, and even we wrote the scratch code for K-mean clustering in previous video. In this video, we'll try to see implementing K-mean clustering library using Python on the data. So let's go to the Jupyter notebook directly. So in the previous video, if you remember, I took this data and write the Python scratch code. So here you can see this, and we run 2 3 times, and finally we were able to get this centroid. So basically, we took two cluster, right? So in previous video, we created this. Basically, we find two cluster, and first cluster, centroid is like 4.25 for X and for Y 4.91. So this is cluster 1. For cluster 2, 16 for X, for Y 30.6. So basically, this is the final centroid we reached in the previous video, and I believe you were able to recall this. How we did this? First, we take a random centroid, then we find the minimum distance, putting the data into the both cluster, again calculating the average of that, then again putting the data, again doing the similar thing. Going to the next step. Whenever the centroid is similar from the previous step, we just stop there, and we finally got this. Let's try to implement directly on data using library and try to see whether we are getting the similar centroid or not, which we did in the previous video using the scratch code. So let's do this. So basically, I'm taking this data. So let's the same data. So here I'm using k-mean clustering. So you can see there is k-mean clustering in sklearn.cluster. From sklearn cluster, I'm importing k-means. So just creating object here for k-means. N cluster is equal to I'm passing 2 because I want two cluster. So even in the previous video, I explained you whenever you try to implement a k-mean clustering, you already knew how many clusters you needed. For a data where you don't know how much cluster is needed, if you want to know how can you identify how many optimum cluster can be for that data, we will talk in the next video. Okay. So right now I'm just implementing this. So I'm taking n cluster is 2, then I'm fitting my data. So this is my data. I'm fitting to this method. Now there is a two one is label and second is cluster center. So I'm just try to find the first centroid. So this label I will use later. But here you can see now see the centroid. So basically, as we have a two cluster, so there is two centroid. First is 4.2.4.91. The similar we got from scratch in the previous video, and for second cluster I'm getting the same 16 and 30.6, right, the same value. So we now we're able to create two cluster. First cluster is these, like these are the centroid. Second cluster is this centroid. So in label, actually label will going to take the value whether which data point will be 0 or 1. So let me show that as well. So here you can see 0 0 and 1 1. So let me put this label to the data. So in data, I'm creating one column. So basically the data, I'm creating one column named target and just putting this label data over there. So now if you see data, we have sorry, we have a data with target 0 and 1. So if I filter with 0 and 1, we'll get the similar data in cluster 1 and cluster 2, which actually in previous video we got after doing all the calculation, right? So this is the actual, the very simple way to implement the k-mean clustering using Python on a data set, right? And in this way we can do this. Now still the question is unsolved. How can we find how many clusters is needed? So in this next video, I will explain it how we are able to find how many cluster is needed for a specific data. Okay. So I believe we are able to understand. If you go for previous video and this video, you will have the better understanding of clustering, and you can implement clustering any type of data, maybe sample data or maybe industrial data. So you can apply easily clustering on data, right? Thank you for watching this. I believe you are able to understand this. So please try to watch the next video as well. Next video, I'm explaining how to find how many cluster is needed. Thank you so much.